talked to an investor this morning and she was like, oh, you're building the business like a second time founder would build a business.
Wow.
So lots of people want financing, and the space that they're providing financing in, which is the e-commerce space, like it's really difficult for those businesses to get funding. But I think actually the most valuable things I've ever learned was working were not in the good times, in the really, really bad times.
Yeah. Aisling Browne, co-founder, CEO of Glitch. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
So before we jump into Glitch and some of the work that you're doing, give us a little bit of a 360 about you, how you come to this journey. You kind of wore multiple hats over the years.
Yeah. So I started off so I was in UCD, studied politics and international relations, really wanted to get into international development. So started off my career working in the British Red Cross. My idea was that I would go and work in the field. That quickly went out the window when I figured out the charity sector was not for me. And then I ended up I was working in London in the middle of the city. That's where their offices were. Crowdfunding became really, really popular at the time. I was really interested in it. Ended up getting a job in a startup that was working kind of in the crowdfunding space. I was there for about 2.5 years. We grew to, I can't even remember, maybe like 10 or 12 people. And then we were meant to get funding and never came through. The business ended. I ended up going to Wales with my husband because he's Welsh. He got a job with BBC in Wales to be a director. So a huge opportunity for him. And I ended up getting a job with the Welsh government. That was kind of like an Enterprise Ireland business. And then off the back of that, I met a fintech there in Wales called Delio, and I worked there. And then that's where I kind of started off my proper strategic partnerships career. They provide like underlying technology for like funds, angel networks to share their portfolio with their investors. And I built strategic partnerships with the likes of Barclays Private Bank. And then it was COVID. I wanted to come home. Ended up getting a job with a big multinational here, implementing banking systems, very different to what I'm interested in. And then I ended up working with Wayflyer, which was insane. I was there just after they secured the Series A, 76 million, I think it was. And I went in to run and like build out strategic partnerships in Europe. I ended up just running strategic partnerships. It was pretty much just one in the US that was really successful in looking at developing out other parts of the partnerships team there. But it was, I'm not sure exactly what employee number I was, but there wasn't more than 100 people when I joined, and then within a year there was like 500 people. It was insane. We went through like extreme highs and extreme lows as a business, and then I decided I really wanted to try my hand at building my own business. Dogpatch Labs had a program called the Founders Program that they launched, which was basically to encourage people in corporate environments to go out and start up their own businesses, and like building, kind of incubating an environment to allow that happen. I met my co-founder in the very first day. He's an ex-Google Ads engineer. That's how I got to where I am today.
So much in that. Do you think the experience of going into the kind of crowdfunding, seeing where it was going to take off, didn't get the funding, do you think that kind of shaped you in some ways for the good and the bad, and then getting into these partnerships?
Yeah.
What makes a good partnership? So I've probably asked you a few questions in once there. Was there something you learned early on that kind of was a really good catalyst for the stuff you did in Wayflyer?
So the crowd, like seeing not just like that business failing, but just being part of startups and growing business and actually working closely with founders, being really lucky to do that, has kind of enabled me to build the business in a like quite a smart way. Like I talked to an investor this morning and she was like, oh, you're building the business like a second time founder would build a business.
Wow.
Which was that's
a lovely compliment.
Yeah,
right?
it was a great compliment. I was like, wow, this is brilliant. Say more of that stuff. So that really shaped me to be maybe the founder I am today.
Yeah.
And the the reason I ended up working with Wayflower is because I had experience working in startups that maybe weren't so successful, but I could maybe identify what could be a potential successful startup.
Yeah.
And I saw Jack and Aidan on maybe like the business post or something. They had just raised that money, and I was like, I need to work in that business. It's going to fly.
Yeah. What was it that you could pick that you felt it was going to fly from it? Because there's so many businesses that are raising money.
Well, so they raised 76 million as a Series A in Ireland, which is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah.
So I was like, tick. And then I did a bit of background research into them, and a couple of my friends worked there as well.
Yeah.
So
You had the inside scoop.
yeah, pretty much.
And then why do you think they kicked on so much where so many other companies didn't? Because there's a lot of companies that raise a lot of money, particularly outside the US, but then they don't kick on.
Well, I was thinking about the product that they're offering. So the product that it's a finance product. So it's different from setting up a technology company where sometimes a tech mightn't work really well, and then you might really have high churn numbers, or churn rates rather. So because they're providing finance, it's like hard for it not to work.
Yeah.
So lots of people want financing, and the space that they're providing financing in, which is the e-commerce space, like it's really difficult for those businesses to get funding. Like I talked to someone recently, and they were telling me about e-commerce business who took on venture funding to pay for inventory, which is like you shouldn't take on venture funding to pay for inventory, and they ended up taking huge amounts of money away from out of their like a huge amount of equity away from them. So that's why Wayflower exists, and it's just like perfectly set up for businesses.
So they just had a really nice niche, understood it, they understand customer problem, and they scaled so much. And then you mentioned kind of the lows. I wasn't privy to the lows. Was it just really high, then lows, then really high again, or how did they kind of overcome it?
Well, so they raised money, they grew the team massively. They then raised another, so I think they raised money in May, and then in December they raised again 125 million, I think it was. So like insane amounts of money. It was that time during 2021, 2022, when everyone was just throwing money around the place. And then in in that April of 22, everything fell out of the ground, and e-commerce was really badly affected. So that really impacted their business. But I imagine because the guys are actually one of the better portfolios in some of the funds, or some of the better businesses in the fund's portfolios, I'd imagine they were under a serious amount of pressure to actually perform. So they had to make huge amount of cuts. They laid off a lot of people. So like we all of our teams had huge KPIs to meet, like insane stuff. So that.
And what made you stick it out through that? Like where you could have just jumped ship or whatever?
Well, I think actually the most valuable things I've ever learned whilst working were not in the good times, in the really, really bad times. Yeah. It kind of prepares you, like especially if, for me now, founding my own business, like I'm thinking of, like, you know, when things are going well, I'm thinking like, well, what if something goes bad, as opposed to so I'm not positive about what's happening all the time. That can only last for so long. There's inevitably something that's cropping up. So I'm trying to be forward thinking the worst case scenario.
Yeah. It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show, and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. So Glitch, what was it that made you want to go on this journey? What's the problem you're solving?
Yeah. So me and Kingsley met on the very first day, and genuinely we decided to work together on that day. On the founders program, there was, I think it was like 42 people. We sat around a table and everyone said who they were looking for, and he was like, "Oh, I'm looking for someone commercially minded because I'm strong technically." So we started talking, and he worked in Google Ads for 5 years, but prior to that, he worked in multiple different startups. He was a really early engineer in Web Summit, so he'd experienced like startup life as well, which I was like, that's actually really key, because this engineer no offense to anyone working at Google, but sometimes they're used to having huge teams and not really being very agile. So I think that was really important to me, that someone had the big corporate experience and also had a startup experience, like that. Those two things were really important to me. So then we started talking about like the different problems that we saw, that we've seen in the market, in our jobs. Like it was a pure, like a clear, like it was an incubator. We were incubating an idea. We were coming up with the idea there and then. And we spent a lot of time talking to businesses that we've worked with or businesses that we knew. And Kingsley was saying basically like Google, all the big ad platforms, they're typically built for like billion-dollar budgets, like your Amazons and your booking.coms. And then there's agencies exist to work with the lower spending clients, and they're still talking like millions of dollar budgets. But then there's a huge amount of businesses that can't really afford an agency. It doesn't really make sense for an agency to work with them and don't have the expertise, like your Wayflyers of the world, like your growing businesses. Like I'm sure, I don't know if you guys in your startup run ads, but lots of people just throw money and see what sticks. And what we wanted to solve is basically enabling B2B businesses and specifically get like that agency level experience without having to pay for it, keeping it in-house, so they can run all the ads themselves but also retain that data. Because that data is like who your audience is, what they're doing, like where are they located, like what products are resonating with them, what text copy is resonating with them. That's really powerful information to share across your business. So basically our system is something that we call an agency in a box for B2B businesses or B2B generalist marketing team to integrate into their day-to-day to when they're ready to expand and scale using ads. So the first thing that we've built for is Google Search. We're building in LinkedIn now. We're looking at building in like Perplexity, but we're building based on what makes sense for B2B businesses. So we're all about driving marketing qualified leads into the pipeline.
So many follow-up questions there, because if you were to read the internet, it's like Google ads are dead, Google Search is dead, it's about Perplexity, ChatGPT, Bing. I don't know the latest figures, but it feels like Google has been written off very quickly, right? I definitely know on LinkedIn there's something going on with that algorithm in terms of what's coming up, premium. Your post 4 weeks later, your friends are talking about, oh, I saw you were there. I was like, when would that happen? So it's like there's so much. And personally, I just don't advertise whatsoever because I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I just believe in organic, and you'd have to convince me to do anything different. But that's my journey. So how could you convince someone? Because I actually don't see the value at the moment in what's happening on those.
That's fair. So there's two types of people that we're talking to at the moment. So and we're testing kind of messaging and what's landing with them. So it's the people like you who don't advertise, who need to be convinced, and then the people that have seen ads work, but it's not working for them anymore. Which is a lot of people.
Which is probably worse, because you thought it would be just turn it on, happy days, but actually then you see all the work
so
that goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's so much work, because a lot of people just think you put in some information and you should get sales off the back of it, which is not the case. It's actually really technical. And that's why agencies exist, and they will always exist, because there's some people that will just always want to outsource that. Like when we build out this product a bit more, we want agencies to buy it to streamline their work internally.
In part of you thinking, I'll take on a marketing person, I'll take on a salesperson, and then here's my predictions and growth, it's all going to work out. And it's like, well, it's not like that whatsoever. And it doesn't matter how good your marketing person if your product fit is wrong.
Exactly. So what we're trying to do is, the ads part is really important. So making sure that you're spending your budget effectively. But the other part that we're trying to do is like get that intelligence back out. Like, so like if your ads are working well, then you should find out information about who your customer is. Like what is resonating with them, where they're located, all those things I talked about before. And what I really want to do is like reduce those gaps, that like really clear gap and silos that exist between marketing and sales.
'Cause isn't it crazy that you think you're solving one problem where they actually don't care about that problem?
No.
They've got a completely different problem that's more nuanced, that they're actually further down the track, and then your marketing budget has been following something else. But actually, if you read the intel,
Yeah.
it's actually saying, this is my catalyst of my issue, solve this.
Yeah. When we were building this, I talked to a lot of like consultants that would go into businesses and run ads for them. One of them worked with me in Wayflyer, and she was saying to me, there's so many businesses that think, just say their customer is like a yoga teacher that's between 35 and 50, but it's actually like a builder that's like, 35 to 60 or something, like very different. Like, that's probably a bit unrealistic, but there's so many, she's seen so many things like that happening.
Yeah.
So I've always like remembered that, and that's one of the reasons that we've built in that really the intelligence part, or the insights part of our business, to make it to basically show the customer, and with data, backed up by data, who their customer really is, because they will always think that they're right.
Yeah.
Like the business owner or the marketing or the person that leads on marketing. But when you start to show them the data around like who actually is converting, then it's easier for you to justify why you're making decisions, because agencies have a huge issue with them, like a company outsourcing to them, and the company still not trusting their judgment. So we're trying to make that like justify why we're making decisions based on data.
When you were doing the work, were you focused on making sure that AI was embedded in, or is it a case of your co-partner was working in Google Ads algorithm? Did you care it was AI? Did it just happen to be AI in there? Or is it a case of you're seeing it as a massive enabler? What's your kind of take on that?
So he's worked in machine learning and AI for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So like before it was sexy. And we've always built the business with AI in mind. So when we first started thinking about this, it was like when ChatGPT was releasing all that functionality around October 23, when they started changing the game and making AI a bit more accessible to people building businesses. So we started building at like the perfect time. So the system is an agent. It's like multiple agents in the background doing different things. But the way we build as a business, like we have 3 engineers, and they use Claude to develop, and they're operating. I say like a team of 10. I don't know for sure, but like they're operating at like an incredible rate, with just 3 people.
So they're already kind of seeing that kind of productivity gains.
Yeah, massively so.
Because for most people, when they use ChatGPT, they use it badly, firstly. And then they get a little bit of impact, and they might go back to it twice a week or something like that. Or I'd say, but Claude Code is just incredible.
It's insane.
If you start to use it, the impact you can start to have. You're talking about 3 people being the impact of 10. We're seeing companies of 10 people doing the impact of 500 people.
It's insane, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, right. And like you show them what they do, and you come in and you manage the workflows, and they're literally treating these agents like colleagues. Like literally, come on, hurry up. Like they're working through. It's still not perfect though, but that Claude is really, really effective. And the other ones are becoming more and more like that. They do come with a cost though. You have to spend a lot of money in some cases. At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different ways. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.